Hey guys, and welcome back to Cleaning Up History, where my goal is preserving headstones in cemeteries and telling forgotten stories of the past. This is the Dock Byrd story. Dock Byrd lived in Campbell County, Tennessee. He was a descendant of the Scott County Byrds, and he worked at various jobs. He was a guard for a while. He worked in mines, and at one point he bought this tourist cabin, which was what we would define as a roadhouse, and tried to make a living there. From what I understand, this place was a pretty rough establishment, and the owner had lost his license to sell alcohol. So Byrd leased the property and decided to try hand at it himself. Only after about a month in, Byrd also lost his license to sell alcohol. So he was planning on going back to work in the mines. So on a Sunday in October of 1947, Alonzo Dock Byrd, along with Howard Robbins, who was a Army vet, they had a fishing trip planned, and that Sunday they were going fishing, and the following Monday, Byrd was to report back to work at the mines. Byrd was still living in the Indian Gap Tourist Camp cabin, where he was leasing the building for the roadhouse that he had been trying to run. And according to these newspaper articles and the jailer who was releasing the information to the papers, Robbins and Byrd decided to make a night of things, and they went to a man named Pop Blankenship's house in Anderson County, where they had a dinner consisting of squirrel. And around midnight is when they wound things up, and Robbins dropped off Byrd at his cabin in Vasper and headed to La Follette to get a motel room with a girl that he was with. And at the same night, at approximately 2:30 a.m., Glenn Farmer, along with his wife, who were the owners of the Indian Gap Tourist Camp cabins, they arrived at the scene of a fire. They reported that they had smelled gasoline upon arriving, and the whole cabin that Byrd was staying in was completely burned to the ground. Now remember, Robin said he dropped Byrd off at midnight, and then by 2:30 a.m. the cabin was completely burnt to the ground. At first, when police officers investigated this, they weren't aware that Byrd was in the building at the time, and they were later called back because someone actually found bones in the rubble of this fire. And so they returned, and while sifting through the ashes, they discovered the bones of Dock Byrd, along with some 30-30 shells, and Byrd's pocket knife was the only thing that remained of his belongings. His wallet, everything else was burned completely. They took Robbins in and held him for questioning, and he gave them the statement, which I talked about earlier, was they had decided to make a night of it, and they went to Blankenship's, and then he dropped Byrd off around midnight. It was investigated for a little bit, and then it was determined that Byrd may have possibly accidentally burnt himself with a cigarette, and his cause of death on his death certificate simply states no doctor in attendance. Byrd had been married and divorced 3 times. He had 3 children, and at the time of his death, he was divorced. It stated in one of the articles that he lived with a lady by the name of Biggs, and that he had lived with her for some time. On his death certificate, the informant was Roy Byrd, which was his brother. So what do you guys think? Was Dock Byrd murdered, or did he accidentally burn himself to death? That's the story that I have for you on Dock Byrd. And as always, I appreciate all of your likes, comments, views, and shares. And if you like the content of my channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.